we're going to do what he does and do what he says. So let's give it up for Christopher Schloeman.
Welcome. Good to see you. Spellman snuck in too. I was looking for you, dog. I stood up and got us recognized today. Don and I had a really good appointment, an ASAP appointment yesterday that converted into a data collector. It was a really, like, super solid. And the reason I say that is, like, husband and wife, early 30s. They both are sheriffs, working for the county. 2-year-old, one on the way due May. Like what I told Don, like, those kinds of couples, you see enough of those kinds of couples, you are going to build an unbelievable business, because they're either going to be clients or agents or both, and that is just like, it's the sweet spot of what we do. So in my base shop meeting after the meeting the other day, somebody asked me, had a good question, and she said, well, if we do these things, are we going to get results, are we going to get success? And what I said was, not necessarily. And the reason is we're dealing with a variable in our business called human beings. Except for in my base shop, I got a couple Martians. But in general, right, human beings. And so human beings, like, are unpredictable. Is that true or not true?
True.
All of you who are married, is that true or not true? True. True, that's very true, right? Yes.
Hey, Chris,
But, yes.
what kind of referrals do you get from a person like that?
Well, literally, so Don, will you stand up and read that text real quick, Don? Oh. So literally, I didn't, and that's a great question, Jim. The meeting wasn't even 5 minutes over. I'm rushing to get out of here. And Don forwards me a text that he already received from them. Was that literally within 5 minutes, Don, or am I exaggerating?
Very true.
Very true.
So he said, I appreciate the time. Look forward to next week. Also have a few work buddies who could benefit from your service. I'll definitely give them your info, if that's okay.
We're not sure. Qualify these work buddies of yours first. But yeah, what Jim said is so true. Like, when you get into those markets, like, birds of a feather what?
Flock together.
Flock together. Those birds, like, young married couples with young kids tend to hang out with other young married couples with young kids. Sheriffs tend to hang out with other sheriffs, which is a great market to be in, right? So, literally, you get into those kinds of markets and your business just explodes. Because you get referrals right away. You've got credibility. These people have enough money in their pocket where they're not afraid of making decisions or writing checks. It's not like they're so consumed with debt or so paycheck to paycheck that they're, like, paranoid and, right, scarcity, sort of fear-based. And yet they're not rolled so deep in it that they've had a lot of help. Like, what they realized was, like, we don't know anything about this, teach us. And we just took our time and taught them. So there's a lot to be said for that. A lot to be said for that. And that's fun. But the referrals, like, to Jim's point, we didn't even ask for the referrals yet. Like, obviously, the first part of the presentation, you plant the seeds for referrals, but they're already offering them to us. Actually, I did drop in later and talk about it a little bit. And what I talked about was how normal it is to give referrals. And they live in Claremont, and there's a restaurant in Claremont called the Meat Cellar that just opened a location by our house. It's our second location, and I just told them, I was like, have you guys been there? Because we were talking about restaurants in Claremont, because Michelle and I used to go there a lot when we were dating and engaged. We used to have dinner there a lot. They're like, no, so we're talking about different restaurants there, and they're like, no, we haven't been there, but we intend to. I go, oh man, I started telling them about the Meat Cellar. And the more I told them about, like, our experience there and how much we love the food and the environment and the service and the wine selection, the more that we're telling them about these things, then I just said, you know what? I said, you know what? I said, here's the fact of the matter. I said, because I've experienced the Meat Cellar, I said, I feel totally comfortable referring you guys to this place. And I said, with Donald, I said, once you've completed this experience, then you'll have an experience. And I said, it's completely normal and natural for us to give referrals about places that we've been or services that we've received that we really enjoy, that we feel like we get a lot of value for. I said it's unnatural, though, for us necessarily to refer a place like, I couldn't refer you to a restaurant I've never been to, as an example. And so I used that as a segue to talk about referrals again, and then literally without even asking them. Now, we planted the seeds. We talked about that on Friday's call, but without even asking them, they're offering us referrals if that's okay. So we'll have to qualify them to make sure it's okay, right? So that's number one. Number two, how many of you were, so in the second quarter, I want to make a clarification on the training. Second quarter on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, we're doing the kitchen table presentation. All things related to the kitchen table presentation, so you don't want to miss the Sanderson night, the Life Builders night on Tuesday nights, because there's going to be a succession of trainings based around how to become more effective at the kitchen table presentation. You don't want to miss Wednesday nights from a Team Freedom perspective to get good at our process and get good at closing business, get good at getting referrals, right? On Saturdays, we're going to be talking about recruiting and building. So Saturdays for the second quarter, we're going to be talking about recruiting and building. If you don't like recruiting and building, if you don't believe in it, if you don't ever want to participate in it, then you can just start skipping Saturdays. But we're going to literally be talking, it's like walking and chewing gum at the same time. So we're going to be walking and chewing gum. We're going to be talking about KTPs during the week, and we're talking about recruiting and building on Saturdays. Jim's training, now I know Jim's training was a little bit different than Dean's, but how many of you were here for Jim's training on Wednesday night? And Fitzroy videotaped and audio taped Jim's training Wednesday night. We made it public to everybody. How many of you listened to Jim's training at least one time? Please stand up. Please stand up if you listened to Jim's training at least one time.
I love that guy.
If you listened to it 2 times, please remain standing.
Yes.
1.5. 1.5.
3 times.
3 times.
Wow.
3 times. 3 times. All right. Great job. And I know Jeanette listened to it 3 times as well. So the reason I bring that up is there was a bunch of us that were here Wednesday night. We're like, that's amazing training. Here's the challenge with that training, and it's a good challenge, and I think it happens consistently, not just Wednesday night. That training was so content rich. There was so much great stuff in it. There's no way you're going to retain it all. Like it's fascinating to listen to it, all these points and all these, right? But there's no way you're going to retain it all. It's too much information. And so we challenge people coming out on Wednesday, hey, listen to it again and again and again before Saturday, because we're going to keep building on this week to week. And the more I said, here's the goal. So when we're doing kitchen table training, field training, I want you to go in the field with me enough times to where before I say something, you already know what I'm going to say before I say it. Before I crack a joke, you're already starting to laugh. Because you already know the joke I'm going to say. Right? Yeah, ha, 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 ha. Like I haven't heard that one before, right? It's monkey see, monkey do. A presentation should be simple and duplicatable, and you should see it enough times repetitiously over a short period of time where you're like, I know it. What I challenged you guys to do Wednesday, at least my base shop, was I want you to listen to Jim's training enough times by Saturday so that you begin to know what he's going to say before he says it. And that's when learning is beginning to take place. Sitting here and watching Jim train, watching the monkey perform on Wednesday night, like that's not learning. Well, actually it is, but I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. But they talk that way about Hollywood performances. Watch the monkey, right? Crank him up, watch him perform, right? Sitting back and just watching Jim train on Wednesday night, or sitting back and just watching me train today is not learning. And a lot of times we say we're going to a training, but there's no real learning taking place, because the amount of learning that takes place by you sitting there passively and not taking notes is minuscule. The amount of training learning that takes place when you actually take really active notes is increased significantly. The amount of training or learning that takes place when you actively take notes and then turn around and either act on that or teach somebody else afterwards goes up significantly. The process of reviewing your notes goes up significantly. So, I know I was talking to Louis this morning, God bless you, and he was talking about how he kept listening to Jim's training over and over, and how he started picking up on things like, these are things I'm doing good, these are things I know that I'm doing out in the field, oh, here's some good reminders, or I'm close to that, but I need to tweak it a little bit. But that only happened because he listened to it repetitiously. And so, why am I saying, let me be clear about this, right? Because Emily's got her own arms full, and I'm afraid she's going to crack me over the head. Right? I'm just messing. I've always been intimidated by strong women, right? Here's why I'm saying. I'm not saying this to shame you and go like, naughty, 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 you didn't do it and you should have. That's not my intent. I'm saying this because what I'm constantly trying to teach is successful practices.
Right.
If you want to be successful, here's what successful people do. They don't just sit back and passively listen. They take notes, preferably in a journal. What's the difference between a journal and a notebook? Journal's hardbound, right? Notebook is not. They tend to take notes. They tend to take handwritten notes more than electronic notes. Research suggests you're going to retain information better. And then they study the information again. Unless you're one of those students, none of my 3 kids are students where they just have a photographic memory. They just go into class and they remember everything they hear. Maybe you are. But I looked at the numbers yesterday, and the numbers suggest you're not. Right? That you don't have that kind of a photographic memory. So what I want to challenge you to do is to begin to practice best practices here. Now here's the fact of the matter. Listening to the training over and over does not take anything away from your quality of water, your day job, or your family. It's like you can listen on the drive to work, listen on the drive home. You can listen. There's nothing better than being in the gym, getting a great cardio workout, like really hitting top speed, and listening to Jim talk about the 5 pre-frames. Like talk about like an emotional high and a physical high, right? Jim going over the 5 pre-frames, and I'm just hitting it, I'm hitting it, right? Matter of fact, I got to rewind and do that again. Man, I mean, you just sort of feel like Rocky in that scene where he's running up the stairs, right? Adam's laughing. Clearly, he's never tried it. Otherwise, he would know that's exactly what it's like, right? I want to challenge you to begin to put best practices into what you're learning here, because I want you to start making money. I want you to start building a business. And you're not going to build a business if you don't get good at this stuff. And it's easy for you to improve your progress. It's easy for you to pick up the rate of progress if we begin to do little things like this. Now, most of you won't write that down. Most of you won't put it in your calendar. Most of you won't put it in your schedule. So even though I just talked about best practices, most people won't do that. Which, if I'm you, is music to my ears. Because I'm going to. That's what's going to make me better than everybody else in here. I might not be as smart as some of them. I might not be as talented. I might not have the market some of them do. But I'm going to do these little things to keep getting better, and I know most of them won't. They'll have good intentions, but they'll procrastinate, they'll forget, they'll get too caught up and too busy, and that's how I'm going to beat them, and that's how I'm going to dominate, and that's how I'm going to really win at this thing. Because most people won't. What? Well, I mean, literally, that's what I told myself my entire career coming up is, I'm going to do the little things that most other people aren't willing to do. It's not that they can't do it, just most people get distracted and don't do it. So, we're going to be talking about recruiting and training on Saturdays. We are going to have some product providers come in. We've already got Will Tate scheduled, and I think we have Chris Kardashian from Crump scheduled too. If you can pronounce his name, please feel free. That's about as close as I can. It's pretty close, yeah. He doesn't have quite the butt, though. But other than that, okay. Wait. So, this is totally. I will not charge you guys for this. This is total sideline, okay? You can delete it from the corporate. So, I come in the other day, and my kids have some friends over, and they're watching the Kardashians, right? Okay. Which is just funny to me, right? And Kim Kardashian, we all know Kim Kardashian, right? Right. She's giving her little sister advice on plastic surgery, and her advice is, she's like, no, you know what? If like you feel insecure about this or that body part, you should just do it. She said, the key is, she says, when you do it, just be modest. Don't go overboard. I'm like, how is she saying that with a straight face? Like, is she reading it on a script or something, right? Just be modest. Oh, okay, got it, right? Yeah, okay, Will, okay.
You don't think she's modest?
What?
You don't think she's modest?
Just as modest as you're making.
Okay, now for today's general training. I'm going to talk today about recruiting and building, and I want to share a perspective that I think is the most important place to get started. I got a lot to cover, and that's the cash flow quadrant. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you are not. You know what? How many of you are familiar with the cash flow quadrant? How many of you have read the book? Nice and high if you read the book, the whole book, not owned the book, but read the book, okay? How many of you listened to the entire book as an audiobook? Okay, how many of you have played the game? Cash Flow Quadrant game. Okay. So, a success principle that I just shared with you moments ago, when I read this book for the first time, here's what I told myself. I understand the basic principles of the book, is what I told myself after reading the book. I understand the principles. Matter of fact, I think I understand them well enough that I could articulate them in a training like this. However, here's what else I told myself. Even though I understand them, I don't know them. What do I mean by I don't know them? I don't think the way he's suggesting that self-employed business owners or investors think. I can understand how they think logically after reading it, but my mindset is like this because this is what I've been doing my whole career. And so I bought the cassette tape version of it after I had read the book, and I listened to it over and over and over again until I literally wore out. Like, it was one of these things I just put in tape after tape, and just for weeks on it, like I just kept listening over and over. Tape 1, tape 2, tape 3, tape 4, tape 1, 2, 3, over and over, until, like field training, I had heard it so many times I knew what he was going to say before he said it. Because what I was trying to do was condition my mind to begin to reflexively think in a way that it was unaccustomed to thinking. It was really accustomed to thinking as an employee. Because that's where I started working as an employee when I was 13. I started here when I was 34. For 21 years, I had worked as an employee, so I was conditioned to think like one. A good employee, but still as an employee. And I wanted to shift into the self-employed quadrant. And even though I was full-time, I was not fully in the self-employed quadrant. Why? Because at the time, my wife was making about $70,000 a year as an employee, and I was making about 15 to 20 grand as a self-employed individual working with WFG. So when I look at where is our income coming from as a family, the majority of it's still coming from the employee quadrant. This is when I recruited Jim. This is when I recruited Lori. This is when I recruited Nikki. This is when I recruited Scotty Benton. I told you that story a couple weeks ago. His son still hasn't responded to me. Just like I said he would. I sent them the little ghost emoji. Yeah. So this is where I was, and I kept listening to this over and over because I wanted to learn how to perform here. I had left a job where I made $134 as an employee, so I wanted to get to a place where I'm making as much self-employed as I was here. Now what Kiyosaki suggests, this is not me suggesting, him suggesting, is that we move from one quadrant to another and then from one to another. It's very rare and unusual somebody just skip quadrants and go from employee to business owner. So here, we're double dipping here, right? And then I get my income up to, do you remember what my income was, Jim, when Michelle got pregnant and stopped working? I didn't have my ring yet. I think I was probably at about 70 grand. And I had bought a house before I got married. And then we had bought a condo together, and we had just bought our first home, and it was like a big purchase for us financially. And then she quit her job, so now I was 100% in the self-employed market because that's where all of my income was coming from. And I was at about 70 grand a year, I think. I didn't have my ring yet when I said, I want you to stay home and raise the baby. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, babe, I got this. I just said, I'd rather work 100 hours a week than two of us each working 50. I said, you stay home and raise the kids, and if I have to, if I'd rather one of us miss out a lot on the kid than both of us. So I said, and I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, it was just, it felt right for me. And so I wanted to take that on. And then what began happening for me was some of my income began coming from overriding Jim and Lori and Nikki and Scotty and Eric and other people in my base shop. And slowly but surely, by year 4, and I should pull up reports just to show you, but by year 4, 95% of my income was coming from overrides. And 5% of my income was coming from me making sales. And I think I wasn't a $250,000 earner yet, but I think I was year 4, I could look it up, I think I was somewhere like in the 180 to 210 range. And like 10 grand a year, 12 grand a year was coming from me making personal sales, but the rest of it was from this machine that I had built. So what I want to teach, and we're going to bring in some guest speakers to teach as well. What I want you guys to learn about over this next quarter is how do you go about building a business. Part of what you're learning on Tuesday and Wednesday nights is how do I make more money as a financial advisor, as an agent, as a planner, whatever you want to call yourself. Tuesday and Wednesday nights you're going to be learning how to write apps and make money. By the way, if you've been here longer than 3 months, how many of you have been here longer than 3 months? You should have an expectation of making money this quarter. Maybe it's not, hey, put the past, maybe you don't expect to make 10 grand, but I at least expect to make 500 or 1,000 a month. Because if you don't expect to do that, then you're going to behave like somebody who doesn't expect to do that. So here's how you're going to behave. Well, I'm going to go to the meeting today. Oh, I can't go to the meeting. Oh, I went to the meeting. Yeah, it was an awesome trading. I got really motivated, but you're not going to do the things in between. Here's what I love about Jason. Jason was joking about I'm going to get rich 20 bucks at a time. But here's what I like. Clearly, he has an expectation of making more. What he's receiving and what he expects to be receiving, there's a disconnect there. It's frustrating, but frustration is a powerful emotion when you understand. Frustration is your brain signaling, I know I can do better, I just haven't figured out how yet. If you don't believe you can do better, you don't sense the feeling of frustration, right? Frustration comes from, I know I can get a better result than I am now, I just haven't quite figured it out yet. It's a really powerful emotion that's a positive emotion in my mind when you understand what it's there for, right? So you should have the expectation of making money in April, May, and June if you've been here 3 months. And you should have that written in your goals. And if you're reading that daily and you begin to think about, hey, I'm supposed to make money this month. Hey, the month's almost half over. I haven't made money yet. It begins to shift your behavior. Does that make sense? Yes. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. So, what we want to talk about is how to be successful here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And we're going to be talking about building a big base shop or a business on Saturdays. Now, I'll be honest with you. For me coming here, and you're probably not like me at all, but for me coming here, I had never recruited anyone before. The idea of recruiting people, the idea of prospecting people and recruiting people and trying to convince people to go into business with me was completely new to me. It was weird to me. I didn't think it was normal, and I didn't have a high level of comfort with it. So I'm probably the only one, but is there like 1 or 2 people that sort of came into our organization feeling the same way? Yeah. Okay. I've seen your numbers, some of you are lying. Right? So I had to work through that. Why did I have to work through that? Because my end sum goal was this. I wanted to own a business where most of my income came from this quadrant, the business owner quadrant. I didn't leave my job to become self-employed, and I didn't want to be an employee. I wanted to own a business that employed lots of people. Much like if I bought a jewelry store or I bought a Subway sandwich shop, I would need to recruit people to work for me at that organization. They wouldn't just like show up, right? So I had to learn, how do I recruit people to work here? And here's what I told myself, is I have to learn, number one, how to do it. What are the skills or the how-tos? Right? And what's the mindset or the mentality of a big base shop builder? What's the mindset or the mentality of a great recruiter? What's the mindset or mentality of a builder? What's the difference between a recruiter and a builder? So I had to learn these things. And much like I listened over and over and over to Kiyosaki's tape about this to begin to shape the way that I thought, I would get audio tapes of trainings like this or other ones from the big shop builders, from guys and gals talking about recruiting building, and I listened to them over and over and over. There used to be a series of videotapes, VHS tapes. Jim, will you explain, or Ricky, can you explain to Warner and Louie what a VHS is? So, there, yeah. So I had this series of, there was, I think I still have them in my garage actually at home. There was 6 or 7 or 8 VHS tapes that the company produced, and like Swan Wynn, John Pham, Hubert Humphrey, Rich Thawley, like these guys, like each had a tape of Andy Nguyen, and it was about recruiting and building, and the 8 speed filters, and the fast start process, and like these great topics, and I would literally listen to these over and over, like in my free time. Instead of watching the Kardashians, I'm watching John Pham or Andy Nguyen. And literally, once again, I didn't do this with every tape series, but this was another tape series where I had to buy a new set of them to replace the old ones because the old ones just wore out on me. Over and over and over, I'd just be watching these guys, how they thought about the system, how they ran the system, what their mindset was, to the point where I knew what they were going to say before they said it. Because I had to shape the way I was thinking about related to this. Here's what I knew. The way I was thinking about, like this is a little weird, it's a little awkward, I've never done this before, I'm not sure if I'm good at this, I'm sorry. All of those thoughts, every time one of those thoughts percolated up in me, I knew that was a thought that wasn't congruent with my goals.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a big fitness goal this year, right? Thursday night, I did, like, on my diets, Thursday I was like really spot on, real small portions, boom, boom, boom. Probably didn't eat enough during the day, probably didn't eat enough carbs, and Thursday night this thought percolated up. I think we've got some Captain Crunch in the pantry.
Crunch berries or just the plain?
There's the plain ones, but like, Captain Crunch is the top 3 for me, and like cereal is probably number 1 or top 2 for me as far as a late night snack. Just carbs and the dairy and just like, I think maybe it comes from like nursing as a baby to where you just like pass out. It's like adult nursing on a bowl of cereal to me. It's just like, you just get the little milk, just right? It percolated up. And I responded to it. I was like, yeah, we do have some. And should I or shouldn't I? I should, right? But I was aware of the idea percolating up.
Yeah.
And I made a conscious decision, though a poor one, about what I was going to do. But in the same way, when I was building a business, there were ideas that percolated up about, I don't want to prospect them, or what if they reject me, or I don't know if I want to talk to this person in my warm market, because what if they think I'm involved in one of these scams, like David said, or one of these things, or what if they think it's multi-level, or what if they lose respect for me, and I would have these ideas percolate up, and I'm sure the only one in here that's ever had these ideas percolate up, and what I knew was, if I'm going to be successful in this quadrant and build a big business, I've got to have a strategy in place for when these ideas percolate up.
Yeah.
I can't continue to allow these ideas to percolate up all the time, consistently, incessantly, over and over, and expect to build a big business. Because none of the people that I'm trying to model, none of the successful people who have done this before, think that way anymore. They did at one time, but they don't anymore. So I can't. So one of my friends, I remember years ago we went on a diet, and she taught me an affirmation of hers that she picked up from like skinny runway models. And the affirmation was this: nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And so like literally it's like Captain Crunch, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And that was a good affirmation for me when those ideas would percolate up, right? So you've got to become, number one, aware of your thoughts. That's what they call metacognition, is when you think about your thoughts. Most of our thoughts are habitual. They just go over and over and over without... It's when you begin to become aware of your thoughts and you begin to say, no, I choose not to think that thought anymore, I'm going to choose a different thought. It's abnormal. You've got to be really cognizant and aware of your thoughts to do it. But you've got to have strategies in place. So one of the strategies for changing this, in my opinion, is saturation. You need to saturate your mind through affirmations, through incantations, through audiobooks, through podcasts, through general trainings like Jim's Great Training on Wednesday. You've got to saturate your mind over and over and over. And here's what I want to tell you. Like, I've just read way too many books on this stuff. You're not going to successfully eradicate bad thoughts. They're not, you can, it's almost like, you ever take like a ball and hold it underneath the water in the pool?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. When you saturate your mind with enough positive thoughts or enough like thoughts that are contrary to the ones that are holding you back, it's almost like you're holding these down with all of these new ideas that you're bringing in. But the minute you get a little lax, they pop right back to the surface. Okay? So you're never going to replace them, but you can oversaturate them. And it can become, you can get to a point where you now begin to habitually think these positive thoughts. Or these thoughts, I don't even want to say they're positive. To me, it's like, I've got a goal, and what I need is behavior, I spelled that wrong, that's congruent with my goals. What I need is habits that are congruent with my goals. What I need is thoughts that are congruent with my goals. These need to be in alignment. And what we oftentimes have is thoughts that are over here that are not congruent with what we want to achieve. And here's where middle class people get into problems. We act as if we don't have control over those thoughts. I just can't help that. That's what I've always thought, or I can't help what I believe. And we can't. But number one, you have to be aware of these thoughts. Number two, you have to have the belief that I can change the way I'm thinking. Do you think the same way today that you did when you were a teenager?
No.
For better or for worse? Right? So we can change our thoughts. So what we want to begin to do is be aware of thoughts out here that aren't congruent with our goals. And we want to begin to, how do I begin to create new thoughts? One is by saturating. When I hear this, so my wife and I talk about this all the time. Your children, no matter how good of a job you do raising them, your greatest fear as a parent is that they'll start hanging around the wrong group. Right. Because why? Because they'll start hearing thoughts and ideas from these kids that make different kinds of choices over and over and over till it becomes normalized thoughts or normalized thinking for them. Does that make sense? What I want you doing through podcasts or Jim's training or that sort of stuff is hearing ideas over and over and over that aren't naturally the way you think, where they begin to influence, and you start to think these thoughts on your own that are congruent with your goals. But we tend to have thoughts over here all the time about money or success or winning or competition or recruiting people or building a business that aren't congruent with our goals. And if we don't acknowledge them and say, hey, I need to do something about this, they're going to continue to go on unfettered. And you can keep showing up to meetings and hoping to win. But if you're not able to shape the way that, you know what people call it? Good. Good. I'm thinking of on the other side of the spectrum, people call it brainwashing. Right? So, to a certain degree, do we as parents brainwash our children? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? Except for the parents that are raising their children gender neutral and letting them choose, like sometimes later, all this great stuff that's going on today. To a certain degree, we brainwash our children. To a certain degree, do the schools brainwash our children? Yes. To a certain degree, do the churches brainwash our children? Yes. To a certain degree, does the TV, does, pop music, social media, all these things, when we're exposed to them repetitiously, begin to brainwash us in a certain way. what I'm saying is, don't say, no, that's not true. What I'm saying is accept that as a reality and become the controller of the brainwashing. If you're going to wash your brain, yeah, you wash it with the right stuff. You choose this. You choose the liquid detergent that you're going to use and the kind of sponge, right?
So what you're, in layman's terms,
Oh.
our mind, our body is set up for us to rewire ourselves, to rewire, to brainwash. It's designed to accept that. So if we just...
I would say no. I would say that's not true. I appreciate what Hope said. So what you're suggesting is your mind is designed to be re-brainwashed and be retrained. The mind is designed to run as efficiently as possible, which means the mind is designed to run on autopilot whenever possible.
Oh, okay.
You ever like driven home or driven to work, and then you get there and you're like, holy crap, how'd I get here? Like, I don't even remember driving here. Like, I was in a complete freaking trance, right?
Having you work at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, like you're totally somewhere else, right? Our mind is designed to be efficient, and it's very efficient when it just works on autopilot. And so, this brainwashing that's taking place has created your autopilot, your norm, which is the life that you're living right now. So it's abnormal. It creates a drain of energy and real conscious thought to go, wait a minute, I'm aware of this thought, but I'm not going to choose. I meditated this morning before the meeting. What is the process of meditation? The process of meditation in its most simplistic form is this. It is this random noise and chatter in my brain and these automatic thoughts. I'm going to let go of them all and just try and quiet the mind as much as possible. And occasionally thoughts are still going to pop up, and I'm just going to try and not pay attention to them. I'm just going to let them pop up and sort of release. But I'm going to try and just quiet the mind. What they call the monkey brain. I'm going to try and quiet the monkey brain, quiet that internal voice, just let go of thoughts, and just get to a point for 20 minutes, which rests the mind. But here's I think one of the most valuable benefits of meditating. It's not just the resting of the mind, but I believe this: it's you taking control of the thoughts that the mind is producing or not producing, and saying, "I'm in control." Autopilot is not control. I'm in control. We're running on manual function today, and I'm the one operating the manual function. And so, to me, that's one of the benefits of just meditating. And if you learn about, there is no wrong meditation. People are like, I can't do that. I can't turn it off. That's like it. Just getting yourself in the practice of it is helpful. Anyway, I've got a lot to cover. Sorry, just getting updates. My boys have 4 basketball games today and a minimum of 4 tomorrow. So that's a little bit of a crazy day. So let me get into the training of recruiting and building, but I just wanted to address a little bit of the mindset of it first, because I thought that's valuable and it puts things in perspective. Now, by the way, I want to share with you a quick story, okay? Oh no! Uh-oh. I think I'm missing the page that starts.
Reprogram the manual.
I just don't know how I did that. So, I want to share with you one more story related to this. So I'll just share it from memory. So there was a mom and a dad and a little boy. And the little boy was like 4 years old, and they're taking him to the park. And as soon as they get to the park, right in the front of the park is a swing set, and the little boy loved swing sets. So he got on the swing and he started swinging. He's like pumping his legs and going up and down and higher, and just like radiating with joy and happiness. He's just so excited, so pumped. And after a while, the parents are like, okay, it's time to move on. And the little boy didn't want to. And so the more they tried, like at first they're like, oh, come on, honey. And then they're trying to encourage him, like, well, right around the corner here is the carousel, whatever you call that thing, right? And like, they knew how much he loved carousels. But even though he loved carousels, he didn't want to let go of the swing. So he kept swinging and swinging. And so they moved then from like trying to encourage him to what? To threats, because that's what parents do, right? First you try to encourage him, then you move the consequences and threats, right? Then they're threatening him, and he's not doing it, so finally it's like they grab the swing and stop him from swinging and basically tear him off of the swing and move. And next thing you know, he's on the carousel and he's having a ball again, right? So, it said, and then here I'll pick up where the story. Suddenly his eyes grew large with excitement. His tears disappeared as he mounted a wooden horse and smiled and waved to his parents. So, the swing might represent any pattern of old and comfortable behavior, a job, a habit, a relationship, or another pattern. The present self is very tied to this established pattern. We sense that without the pattern, the self would no longer exist. It becomes part of our identity, these patterns that we run. Patterns as it relates to money, success, relationships, whatever the case might be. This view exacerbates our problem. The longer we stay on the swing, the less courage we have to change. What's your swing? The longer you stay on the swing of not calling people, not inviting guests, not scheduling your time, not being diligent about really learning information between classes, the longer you stay on those swings, the harder it is to get off of them. Because that pattern becomes a part of the self, a part of your identity. It's a part of the way this is the way I do WFG. I just come to these trainings to get motivated. And one day it's going to pay off, I'm not going to do it today, right? We get caught in a vicious cycle and can see no way out. At such times, the notion of realignment seems utopian at best. We come to believe that we are powerless, reflecting that all human beings are determined by their environment, that there is no such thing as individuality, freedom, choice, or impact. We are so into this sense of defeated and frustrated self. How many of you can relate? Say aye.
Aye.
How many of you have a neighbor that can relate? Say aye. Aye. Oh yeah. We are so into this sense of defeated and frustrated self that we do not recognize that our best self is not the old self, but a new self that is slowly emerging. In pursuing a task, we naturally follow our existing paradigm, scripts, or frameworks. These maps are the key to our past success. These maps are the key to our past success. We know they work. I've been a good employee everywhere I've gone. I've always been respected by my peers and the bosses. I've always done well. That map works. I know it does because I've got all this experience of it working over and over and over again. Of course it works. The problem is, as we experience success, we change and so does the world. A map we have used in the past might be of limited value in a new territory. A map we have used in the past might be of limited value in a new territory. In a new situation, if we cling to our old map, we might become deeply frustrated. At such times, we often become trapped in the logic of task pursuit. Let me give you a really simple example. I've got a map, and I follow the map, the old Thomas Brothers maps, right? And it gets me from here downtown to the courthouse because I work in the courthouse. And every day I follow the map, and the map works. We now move to Arizona, and I get transferred to the courthouse in Arizona. Is the map going to work for me there?
No.
No, because the territory has changed. I'm in a new situation. No matter how many times that map successfully got me to work, it's not going to get me to work now. It's not going to get me the result of getting to work on time. Why? Because the territory has changed. If you're trying to change the territory, you're going to have to relearn a new way of being successful. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. So, I'm going to get into some recruiting and building things. Do these ideas work? I don't know. I forget, but I'll remember it.
Looks like you typed it up.
I had somebody type it out. So it's one of my oldest and most favorite leadership books. I haven't actually read it in a while. So here's what I want to share with you. So I typed it out for this leadership retreat I had in 2004. 2004, I was running a small base shop. I think Jim was a part of that base shop. I think Nikki was. I think Lori was. But nobody knew at the time that they were going to be the Nikki and Jim and Lori of today.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to be. They thought they were going to be. But I thought others were going to be. And others thought they were going to be, and they weren't. In these cases, they really were. They were the ones. Remember, Ritz was a part of this meeting. Misha Slade was. So I rented a cheap little room over in Diamond Bar, that little hotel over there. And we had a leadership meeting. And I put together this book, and we went through an all-day training, and basically I said, hey, we're going to go out and be one of the top 10 base shops in the company. Top 10 recruiting, top 10 production, and they pretty much thought I was crazy at the time because we were not even showing up on the Leaders Bulletin, right? And so, roughly a year later, in 2005, we get one of the top 50 golf scores in the company. And we were top 10 in recruiting in the base shop and top 10 in production in the base shop. And a golf score is a combination of base shop recruits, super base recruits, base shop production, super base production, and cash flow. So we were 43rd that year in the company in those 5 categories. But we had made the top 10 recruits and top 10 in production. The following year, 1 year later, we're recognized as the MVP of the entire company. Had about 12,000 people that were at the convention that year. Okay, so, but it started here with the ideas in this book. That's where it started. And I started to work obsessively on the idea. I wanted to become a great recruiter and a great builder. I wanted to build a company that wasn't dependent on me getting sales. I wanted to build people independent of me as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And I knew this, as talented as Jim was, or as Nikki was, or as Lori was, I had to keep bringing in new people every single month because I didn't know how long they were going to last. And I didn't know if they were the one. And I knew that my business needed new inventory every single month, new people to work with. It was just a function of being successful in this model. Once again, I didn't try and have thoughts outside of here like I can be successful and reach the goal of these other that I admire these other people have reached. I can have that kind of business and that kind of an income and all that's passive residual income. I didn't believe that I could have those things by having these thoughts over here. I'm going to do it somehow without talking to people in my warm market. I can do it somehow without recruiting people. I can do it somehow without inviting guests. I didn't think, like, when those thoughts percolate, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That's not the way they think. I need to shift that thought. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so let's go through some principles of being a recruiter and a builder and a leader. Okay, the tendency for most weak builders is what? 2 points. The tendency of most weak builders is what? Velvet?
Recruit and train.
Recruit and train. Excellent. Recruit.
Thank you, Velvet.
First you recruit them.
Voice changed, Velvet. A little deeper.
And then you train them.
I read the BFS.
Yeah. You recruit them and you train. That's the tendency of weak builders. I recruit him, now I want to train. I want to help her get licensed. I want to teach her the KTP. I want to teach her the scripts. Train, 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 train. That is a tendency. Now some of you are going, well, no, that totally makes sense. Okay? You're thinking thoughts over here. You're not thinking thoughts that are congruent with people who've achieved what you want to achieve. So you can try and be the anomaly. Somehow I'm going to think thoughts they don't think. I'm going to think thoughts the opposite of what they think, but somehow I'm going to get the success that they have. Right? I'm going to keep thinking, no, food tastes way better than Skinny feels, so I'm going to have Captain Crunch every night, but I'm going to be skinny like a runway model. I'm going to be the one that defies the odds, right? That's literally what you're trying to do. What's a big builder say? By the way, David, you and I had this conversation. I'm like, David, one of the things I admired the most about David, when he got started, he was doing like double-digit recruiting like 3 months in a row. Or Dean and Velvet were, and David was a big part of that. I'm like, and David and I, anytime he's asked for coaching, I'm like, bro, go back and be that David again. Because that David's going to win, this David isn't. You focusing on your personal training or training your guys isn't going to get you there. You being the guy that brings guests like he did today, that gets 3 recruits like he did this week, that's the guy that's going to win here. And it's funner, isn't it? Yeah, because training people can be frustrating. So what does a big builder say? Recruit them. You still got to recruit them, right? And what's number 2 if you're a big builder?
Motivate.
Recruit more.
Motivate.
Close. Help them build a team. Help them build a team. So my goal is not to train Kim. My goal is to go out and recruit John and James and Vivian and Deanne for Kim. An equal amount of hours. However many hours it takes me to recruit these 4 people for Kim, if I spent the same amount of hours training her, which person would you rather have on your team? Let's say it takes me 12 hours to recruit these 4 people. Would you rather have the Kim with nobody on her team that I've invested 12 hours into training, or would you rather have the Kim on your team that has 4 associates on her team and she's spent 12 hours with me as I was contacting and running appointments and eventually led to these 4 recruits? Which one would you rather have on your team?
Second.
First or second?
Second.
Second. It's obvious, right? Yet we have this tendency to, when we get a recruit, is like, and here's part of it, and it's coming from a good place. It's just not going to get you to a good place. It's coming from the place, well, they didn't tell me this when I started, and nobody showed me this, and they should, so here's what I want. I want to do everything that I thought should have happened for me, for my new person, because I want them to have the best possible experience. It's coming from a good place, but if you really want them to have the best possible experience, do this for them. Do this for them. Because this is the experience that they're counting on your leadership for, is for you to build them a team. Now all of a sudden, it's like Kim's been in business with me 10 days. She's got 4 recruits on her team. She's like, "Crud, I have no idea what I'm doing, but this is working for me. I don't have to tell her where to go to get licensed." She's like, "Boy, I better get some licenses together. I think we're about to close some sales." I don't have to walk her through all the steps. She's got to figure out how to do it. Why? Because I'm getting her the success that when she sat in that meeting, she didn't come out and go, "Man, I'd love to sell life insurance with these guys. Somebody get me a license and train me how to do that." That's not what she's thinking when she leaves there. What she's thinking when she leaves there is like, "Man, I could own my own company. I could be financially independent. I could have passive streams of income." Like, she's thinking those thoughts. And what a successful leader does is helps them do this. You're naturally going to have these thoughts percolate up, aren't you, Velvet?
Yep.
Train them, train them, train them. Aren't you, Carol? And then what happens is like you start investing a whole bunch of time into training them. What did I say people are earlier? Unpredictable, right? You start putting in all this time into training them, and you start expecting what out of them? Results. And then they don't get the results that you expect based on the amount of time that you've invested into them, and you start getting frustrated and rhymes with pledful? Yes, resentful. You start getting frustrated with them and resentful. Now I'm a leader who is frustrated and resentful towards my people. What kind of a leader does it make you? Not a very good one. Not a very good one. But if I'm trying to build Kim a team, and I'm trying to build Steve a team, and I'm trying to build Silton a team, and I get these 4 results for Kim, but Steve's being sort of a blockhead and isn't letting me help him the way I'm trying to, right? And Silton's run into a little bit of some bumps in his warm market. I'm not resentful or frustrated towards them because I'm trying them all to help a build team, and we're having some success. And you know what else changes my energy as a leader? I've got somebody new on the team who's excited, and another one who's new, and another one who's new, and another one's new. And new people always have what? Enthusiasm and excitement. When you keep having the same old people and you keep training them, enthusiasm and excitement go down as knowledge goes up. It's natural. I've been married 20 plus years. I promise you, my wife is not as enthusiastic as she was when we were engaged and newly married. Now, I love her more today than I did then, but she doesn't show up with the same sort of enthusiasm when I pop through the door that she did 20 years ago. Who am I kidding, right? Now, granted, she should, right? But, right? My Lord. New relationships there's an optimism with people in that room right now. There's a sense of hope that maybe has been missing for a period of time. And the people that choose to act on it by building a relationship with us and following through for an interview, they bring hope and energy into our Mozo, they bring it into our meetings, they bring it into your day-to-day activities. But when it's the same people week after week, month after month, things get stale. They get stale. Then they start looking around and nobody's growing. We're all learning stuff. The culture and the environment doesn't feel like, man, we're all learning stuff, we're ready to conquer the world. It feels like dull. Does that make sense? Okay.
We'll see if anybody's here.
Short general training of all time. Oh, I still have 5 more minutes because we did good recognition.
Christopher, can I ask you a question on that?
Please.
What exactly does help them build a team look like? Because if I had 4 more people just waiting for me to recruit them, I'd have recruited them by now. So how do I help Brian build his team? What's the short answer to that?
Okay, so respectfully, I disagree with you.
Okay.
Totally
No,
respectfully.
please.
And here's why I disagree with you, is because here's what I believe, and my beliefs may be different than yours. I believe you have people that are waiting to be recruited. The challenge is they're not wearing a sign across their forehead that says, please recruit me. What the sign that they're wearing on their forehead says, I'm doing okay, we're good, I like my job, I'm happy, financially. It's all just a mirage. It's all just this normal, just sort of veil that we all hold up to tell the world that what you see on social media is my real life. Until it comes crumbling down. Then we go, wait a minute, what about all those posts? Right? It's like, women are so good. My wife and her sisters are so good at this, it's always like, oh yeah, something's going on with this relationship. I'm like, no, I just saw them, they're great. Nope, something's going on. How do you know? They go, check their posts. He's posted with the kids, she's posted with the kids. Not a whole lot of posts together, but, right? Yeah, so I'll give you a real example, Jason. Wednesday night, I challenged our team. I said, I want you to put together second quarter goals with a weekly or daily action plan for achieving them. And I said, I want to schedule a 15-minute appointment with every single one of you face-to-face, either face-to-face or on the phone, for 15 minutes to review them and give you feedback so that I know what they are so I can help you to achieve them. Okay? And most of the guys on the base shop got that done by this morning. I said, there's one other thing I want you to do, though. I want you to come up with a list of 5 to 10 names of people that either you'd like to call me to call for you, you'd like me to call with you, or you go, look, I don't need you to call Schloeman, I just need you to get in front of this guy. I know I can get an appointment with him, I just need to know that you're going to run the appointment. Who are those 5 to 10 guys? The greedy guys are going to give me 10. Let's change the world, and right, pixie dust and unicorn guys will give me 5. Right? But give me those 5 to 10, and my job as a leader is to get in front of these 10 guys. And the reality of it is, I'll probably get in front of 7 of your guys. But I like our chances if I get in front of 7. We're not going to get all 7, but I bet 1 or 2, maybe 3 of them will join the business. And I bet we'll get 2 or 3 or 4 clients out of it. Because I'm pretty good at this, I know how it works, but it's about leveraging me to get in front of these people. Right? Does that help?
Hey, Christopher.
Yes.
Please. She's just made a shift this week to start passing numbers up to me. And she worked with you to come up with a script to talk to people that she knows.
Right.
To get them, not in front of me, just to get them to be able to take my call.
Yes.
And she's had some great results. She gave me 3 people last week that are just perfect.
It's taken me 4 or 5 years to get my head out of my keister. Seriously. And I've been, calls. I've got a pipeline, I've got campaign manager, blah, blah. Well, I've got a number of people. I asked Christopher, hey, these are, I was thinking more market because I worked on it before as a massage therapist. We had connection in the past, I knew them. Christopher reminded me a warm market is someone who will go out of their way for you, or that you will go out of your way for them. He says, I'm not discounting the fact that they're warm, right? If they were warm maybe once in a lifetime, but it's been years. So he sat and I helped me come up with, and it's just a slight tweak on the They don't follow a script. What I'm calling it is, you came to mind. Oh, we're talking to my manager, oh, you came to mind. I mean, I've made, what, 80 calls in the past this week, and I'm working this weekend because I'll have probably 300 or 400 of them to make this coming weekend. Yesterday, so
Can I jump in on that?
yeah.
So here's the idea. Hope was calling these acquaintances. Some of them, quite frankly, were massage clients of hers a few years ago. Others she knew through her ex-husband, blah, blah, blah. But it's like acquaintances, not really close friends in the war market. And she's calling them. I listen to her calling them, and she's like, well, I just want to come out and show you what I'm doing. And, you know, or maybe we can build a financial plan for you. And I'm like, no offense, I said, but if you massage me and you're calling, hey, I want to come out and show you what I'm doing, or let me build a financial plan for you, I'm like, you don't have that kind of credibility.
None of us do unless we came from a financial background. Much like maybe Vivian, right?
And here's the other thing I told her is like, I think you're fishing with a small net. I want you to fish with a bigger net. The bigger net, the bigger net is the opportunity, not the financial plan. I mean, be honest. If you yourself, in your current financial situation, somebody calls you out of the blue and wants to do a financial plan for you, or you're just ready to like, yeah, come on over, look at all my stuff. Like, how big of a list of people are you going to allow to do that to you in your current financial state? Is it just about anybody that said that, or would it be a pretty small select?
Especially somebody you know.
Yes, yes. So, however, if somebody knew of a good potential career opportunity for you where you could increase your income significantly, how big of a group of people would you be willing to allow to introduce you to that? Would you care how well you knew them?
No.
You wouldn't, right? As long as it, like, this was something really that could do that for me, right? And so the conversation that she's having is like, hey, I was meeting with my manager last week, and he's looking to fill a new position in our office, or looking to fill 2 positions, and as he was talking about the characteristics of who he's looking for, your name came to mind, and I don't know if you're like love what you're doing now, or if you'd be open to the possibility of a change, but I just thought I'd reach out to you and let you know that he's currently looking, and go from there.
And as you know, every single person that I talk to, there's 7 names that I've passed up to Jim. There's maybe an equal amount of people that, no, I'm married to blah blah. We've made a connection. They've given me more information. Some of them were like hard no's, and I got to delete them and not worry. Some of them, there's opportunity, and I'll sit with Christopher and go, hey, here's the group and batch of people who, you know, weren't interested. How do I approach them? So I'm laying myself bare and just going, dude, I got this group of people, what do I do? He says blah, I act, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be successful.
Well, she's already getting results, and here's what I mean by that. Not only is she already getting yeses that to pass them up to Jim, right? And so, like, in one case, they were like, well, I'm not so sure, I'm pretty happy. And I said, well, just say this. Well, so if you prefer, I won't pass your name on to him then. Why did I say that? Because that's a takeaway. What she was naturally doing at that step was trying to convince him, well, you don't want to at least talk to him, you don't want to at least do that. The more you convince, the more their resistance goes up. I go, do just the opposite, take it away. So, oh, okay, no problem. I thought of you, I had no idea if it'd be a fit or not, so if you prefer, I won't pass your name on to him then. And so, because I'm taking away, now there's a greater chance, not 100%, but a greater chance to go, no, you know what? It doesn't hurt to talk to him.
And I just figured out what froze me all these years. Literally. The way my mind thinks, and I know what WFG is, and as Dean says, everybody needs what we do. So I have this huge swimming pool full of people that I've known in my life that, of course, I care, I want to help. My brain, my little Rain Man brain, when I look at this number, and it's so hilarious, I'm calling these numbers, and I'm going, I feel like I called them 6 times, and I haven't. In my head, it's been running through with all the little poppy thoughts. Well, been trying to figure it all out, and I don't have to figure it all out.
Right.
I'm so happy.
And if Ed really wanted to help me, imagine if his idea of helping me was to do a financial plan for me, and that was it. Because I was already making $134,000 a year. His sister was making 60 plus at the time. We didn't have any kids. Like, we're already making a great income. Like, why in the world would I be interested in something like this? But they make enough money. They'd be great clients. If that's all that he aimed for, imagine if that was his idea of helping. Because for a lot of you got somebody like that in your market. Oh, yeah, they're too successful to recruit. They wouldn't be interested in doing anything like this, but they'll be a good client. So once again, that's these thoughts taking place down here that are percolating up. I look at those guys as an ideal recruit.
Hey, Christopher, one of the guys worked in a construction. He's a parts manager. I knew 4 of the people that he knew. But here's the thing: after I explained to him that I wanted him to come in for an interview, he said, "Well, I'll come in." He said, "But it doesn't sound like it's a fit." He said, "If it's not a fit, do you think you can still help me with my finances?"
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Star move.
Which is it's much more likely to happen. But if I'm aiming for a financial plan, and they go, no, I'm not really interested. Hey, would you like to be in business doing it? Like, it's just an odd backup. But it's a very natural if you're aiming for and they go, well, if it's not a fit, maybe could I still get one of those financial plans? It's a much more natural process. So, helping them to build a team, like, for me, Jason, here's what I know. When I challenged my base shop to come up with 5 to 10 numbers, I said, here's what I'm willing to do to help you. Here's what I know. It's going to take a lot of freaking work on my part. Not the calls, but all the appointments and all the activity to support my teammates that way. It'd be far easier for me to just train them. This is the real work.
Oh.
This makes me feel good, right? Because nobody says no when I'm training them. This I'm going to get rejection on. And I'm going to exert a lot more energy on it. But this is the key to winning. This is the key to winning. So, a recruiter's mindset is different. I apologize. I got through 5% of what I wanted to really cover today. And I'll be gone the next 2 Saturdays. I'm speaking at a fast start school next week for Stephanie Hicks, and then the following week, Eugene Newborn, Eugene and April are opening a new office, and they got me coming out to the grand opening. So I know one of those weeks Tate will be in here, but we're going to keep talking about recruiting and building for the quarter. But what I want to challenge you to do, if you go to YouTube right now, you can find a whole bunch of talks by Paul Hart, Eric Olson, Ed Milet, Jamie Villalobos, Penny Oy, like you can find a whole bunch of them. Like, start saturating your mind with the way that recruiters and builders and people who have built big organizations with the way they think, and pay attention to not the stuff that makes you feel good that you agree with. Pay attention to stuff that they say that you don't agree with, that you don't think the same way. Like, well, that's weird. That's weird. They actually think like a guy making that kind of money would be a good recruit as opposed to a good client. It's not what I would be thinking. Like, be aware of those thoughts that are in. When you hear them say certain things, I believe this, I believe that, this is what I do, and it catches you off guard, like, rewind it 30 seconds and listen to it again. And go, I wonder how the way they think versus the way I think of that same exact situation, I wonder how that affects their behavior and the results. Different, or I wonder how my thoughts affect my behavior and my results. When you can begin to become self-aware and have metacognition, think about your thoughts, think about what you're thinking, you begin to control. And Jim will remember. Remember the Police with Sting. Mm-hmm. Shut up, Jim. But one of the big hits, I think it was '83. I saw him in '81. Was Ghost in the Machine.
I think he was in that movie with Tina Turner.
What's it? I don't know if I remember that.
One in the desert.
He played a role in Mad Max. And
Mad Max.
ridiculous. There's a reason why Sting's
I don't think
not
I
an actor.
Yeah, I don't think I saw it. But Ghost in the Machine, that song is about the controller of your thoughts. About the Wizard of Oz, the little guy behind the curtains that pulling all the strings, right? Most of us have what's called the monkey mind, which is just the automatic, repetitive mind that just runs the show for us and gets us the results that we're currently getting. It's when we take a step back and we begin to observe our thoughts and begin to change. Matter of fact, Ed did a fantastic podcast with Dr. Joe Spinenza or something like that.
Yeah.
I've listened to it 3 times already. I went back and listened to the original podcast, which he did like over a year ago. I didn't think it was as good. I listened to the new one 3 times. Fantastic, and he talks a lot about this. That would be good, something good for you to listen to. But I want to challenge you between now and Tuesday or now and Wednesday to go on YouTube and to find one or two of the big guys and listen to them 3 times. Same talk 3 times. So you really get that kind of repetition. So you almost know what they're going to say before they say it. And you begin to really get clear on the way they're thinking and some of those differences, okay? I think that'll be good homework for you. Any other questions? I got 3 more basketball games my son are playing in today and 4 tomorrow as a minimum. So I got a lot of work to do today.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait till Monday. It'll be a break for my weekend. All right, you guys. Have a great weekend, everybody. Base shop meeting in the conference room.
Thank you.